years. Prior to that, I was with Alibaba.com. And a big part of my responsibilities are helping to manage all of our customer experiences outside of the product. So I spend quite a bit of time traveling, as we have about 75% of our user base outside of the US, and China's our largest market outside of the US.
Yeah, so Evernote's gone through a few big changes this year, both Evernote and your local counterpart here in Beijing. So I guess in 2015, what does Evernote and Beijing look like?
So Evernote's been going through an evolution of, we started out as a pure consumer product, and we've really been moving more into the workspace and focusing on how we can help people at work be more productive. Even when we were a pure consumer play, we were doing surveys of our users and realized that 70% of them were using Evernote at work. So we wanted to make sure that things were more tailored to productivity in the office. And that's what we've been focused on. 2015 into 2016 is really going to be about refocusing on the core product and improving the quality of the existing experience of note-taking, as well as enhancing our team productivity tools.
So one of the big changes you've made here this year is the change to the paid model. So can you tell us a little bit about that? You've added a middle tier to the payment, and how's that affected you?
It's actually been great. So what we did was we started doing some research around the fact that we had a free product and then we had a premium product. And the premium product was the same price the world over, and then we had a business product above that. But the difference between the free product and the premium product was pretty huge. And in doing some research, we realized that a lot of people who mainly use Evernote on mobile devices needed something that was more than our free product, but not quite to the level of the premium product. So we added a middle tier called Plus that really addresses a lot of the mobile uses like offline notes and the ability to use PinLock, etc. But in addition to that, we also revamped our pricing. So Evernote, historically, we've had the same price the world over for our premium product. We added not only the middle tier, but then we did individual research across the world, including in China, to find out what is the optimum price to pay for something that creates the value that Evernote creates. It's a premium product, so it's not a pure discount, but thinking about what is the right price for each country. And we rolled that out in April, and since then, we've seen double-digit growth and actually triple-digit growth in our paid users. And our paid users in China have quadrupled in 2015. So it's been great for us from a revenue perspective, but it's also been great for us from a user perspective in really bringing the right product to the right market.
Yeah, and going forward, what are your China priorities, China specific?
So our priority in China is still growth. So we have 15 million users in China currently, but we're now in the mode of how do we expand that to even more users who can be productive at work. So we want to grow as quickly as possible in our user base, but we want to do that in the right way. We want to make sure that we're getting the right users who are going to see the advantages of the product, not just bringing anybody to use the product. We're very focused on users who are going to be active. So that's priority number one in China. Priority number two in China is really growing our Evernote business product into the workplace and getting more teams using Evernote together.
Yeah, so if you could think about it in the future, is Evernote China, and I guess Evernote Global as well, is this going to be a business product, or do you see the consumer side still kind of, taking a big part?
The way we think about it is less about consumer and it's more about individual versus team. So we really want to drive collaboration amongst users of the business product specifically, but it's really driven through the individual experience. So our individual product will always still be a priority for us because that's the number one way that we get our way into businesses and teams, is people get passionate about using Evernote for themselves and becoming more efficient, more productive by using Evernote for themselves, and then we can then grow into the business product.
Yeah, and you guys, you don't do in-app advertising like a lot of the other apps the way you guys do. This is something you guys have done from the start. For you guys, is this not a viable way to?
It's a viable way to build a business and a business model, but it's actually quite challenging because we really need to focus on getting enough value in the product that it's something that people want to pay for. So Evernote has taken the stance that we are not going to search your data, we're not going to monetize your data. So the notes that you put into Evernote, we don't use that to serve third-party advertising. And because of that, we have to make our money off of building a high-quality product that people want to pay for. So that's a big part of why we're refocusing on sort of the core product of Evernote and Evernote Business, because that's really where the experience drives our revenue.
Yeah, and in the last year, you've got rid of a few other of the, I mean, what was the decision process behind what were the kind of side products you guys got rid of and focused on?
Yeah, we had several other products, including Evernote Food, Evernote Hello, Evernote Peak, which were great products, and particularly Evernote Food, a lot of people really enjoyed it, but it wasn't part of the core mission of trying to help people be more productive at work. And a lot of the functionality of those products can now be done inside Evernote anyway, so it makes more sense for us just to focus on Evernote as a core product, and then sort of grow from there.
Yeah, we heard from LinkedIn yesterday, which kind of in the same way as Evernote has had a local presence, has really tried to localize and release a local product just like you guys. And it's been nearly 4 years since you guys have done that. So, I mean, how has the experience been, and how has that helped Evernote grow from China?
We feel really strongly that we want to create a single high-quality product that can be used the world over. So the product that we have in China, in Chengdu, is the same as the product that we use globally. So the experience is the same. It's still a premium experience. But from an office standpoint, a local presence is crucial. So we didn't send people over from the US to try to open an office in Beijing. We actually hired the team locally using our network and our fan base here in the area to really develop a presence and grow it as a purely local presence. So our partnerships are local, our marketing is local, our customer support is local, everything is done here in such a way that makes sense for the China market, whereas we'll do the same in Zurich. It's completely, it's totally based on what makes sense for Europe, or in Latin America, we'll do what makes sense for Latin America. So the customer experience is a high-quality product, but with a very local experience later on top of that.
I mean, and the way you say it can make it sound quite simple, but of course there are a lot of companies who are trying to do exactly the same thing. I mean, how do you go about setting up that local presence, finding local workers, and then finding local management that kind of reflects the company ethos?
It's a challenge, because I think that there tends to be an issue in Silicon Valley of companies coming over to China and saying, oh, we can do it exactly the way we do it in the US and it'll be perfect, which is completely not true. It's primarily about listening. So whenever you come into any new market, particularly into China, you need to think about what's right for China, not necessarily trying to impose what's done in the US on China. So that's number one. But number two is really, when we source our local talent, what we do is we start by having several user events and customer events in market. So we had users in China for years before we actually opened an office here. And so we would have several events in country, and people come to those events and then they start wanting to get to know us, and they approach us and say, if you ever open a presence in China, please, I'd love to work with the company. So when we launched in Chengdu, we had a bunch of people already who were very passionate about the product, and we were able to hire locally from within that group.
Yeah, so it was really the kind of your existing brand presence that helped you do that.
Absolutely. I think people underestimate the importance of brand, and we engaged our user community in creating the Yin Chengdu brand. We asked them how they wanted to approach the Evernote product in China, and through a lot of those discussions, that's how we found most of our talent.
Okay, so you have scaled back your staff by 13% in the last year. You've got a new CEO, lots of new directions within Evernote. How is the culture internally at the moment, and what's the theory behind the new changes?
It's a natural time for companies to sort of change and evolve. I think it's important. It's always scary when companies don't change and evolve, because what you were at 30 people is different from what you need to be at 300 or 500 or more than 1,000 people. So it's a natural evolution for us, and it's also a really good opportunity for us to reset and think about what is the quality of our product, what is the focus of our product, how do we really drive back to the core of what makes Evernote great. And having these changes come into play has been really, really crucial for that. So internally, it's created a lot of change, but it's also created a lot of opportunity to step back and rethink, which is, I think, exactly what we needed. And it's reflected already in kind of the App Store ratings and everything you're seeing of the product as we're releasing a lot of these quality features. Customers are responding really well.
Yeah. So one of the things that your new CEO, Chris O'Neill, said at the time you were doing all the reshuffling was you were going to pull back on initiatives that failed to support our mission. So what was it? You shut a couple of offices in Asia, including Singapore and Taiwan. What was it about those operations and Evernote generally that was failing to support the mission?
Yeah, it's easy to get spread very thin when you're a growing company. So it's easy to create a lot of different products and get sort of, we call it shiny object syndrome, where you always want to build something new and you want to open something else. And all of our offices around the world have phenomenal people in them, but we have a lot of small offices with only 2 or 3 people, and it was difficult for them to sort of get that scale and growth. So what we wanted to do was not stop supporting any of those countries, but rather consolidate our resources so that teams could be a little bit larger in each office, supporting a broader area, and they could work together and learn from each other. So it wasn't necessarily that there was something wrong, it was more of just how can we bring talent into fewer places so that they can scale faster by having more people in fewer locations rather than a few people in a lot of locations.
Yeah, so and in those places where you guys shut down direct operations, what's Evernote look like there? I mean, you're still operating the service, obviously.
Absolutely. We still do full customer support. We still do marketing in those regions. Singapore, for example, is our highest per capita penetration of Evernote anywhere in the world. So we still do a lot of support for those markets, and we still localize. We still do everything as far as language and marketing around those regions and countries and the ones that they support. But we just do it from fewer offices.
Yeah, and so I guess now you're not looking at new markets in a big way, or opening new offices?
Not yet. I think right now it's really a mode of, okay, what's next for the product? How do we continue to evolve the user experience? But we're already so heavily penetrated, as I said, 75% of our users are outside of the US. We're in almost every country in the world already. So we're able, because we're an internet application and internet service, we're able to scale fairly easily even without physical presence in different countries specifically. It's just really more about how do we evolve the product so that that can scale easily and provide the user experience that we want.
Yeah, and you guys have quite a big focus on big data to help drive these sort of things and research.
We do, but it's actually interesting. We have very unusual philosophies on big data. So from an international expansion standpoint, we can use data to tell us where our customers are starting to inform. So we don't have to choose to go to a market. We let our customers lead us by adopting the product on their own. So we use data a lot to determine where do we need to add support, where do we need to add language. However, where we don't use data is, again, when it comes to monetizing our customer data. So we have this very unusual view in that we use data for our customer expansion, but we don't actually ever touch a user's notes or data for our own marketing even. So it's very kind of, it's an interesting sort of split. We're probably the biggest or smallest big data company you can imagine.
One of the other things, you're smaller and more focused is kind of the mission of the new Evernote. Smaller is not generally in the vocabulary of companies that have $1 billion valuation. And you just mentioned shiny object syndrome. I think that's something that we can see a lot here in the Chinese market. As Evernote's experience, do you think that maybe other companies in the market have something to learn from you guys and a new direction?
Well, I personally think that the important thing that all companies need to think about is really not getting ahead of yourself. Really being very careful. And a lot of the moves that we're making around focus and everything else, it's not because of financial pressures or anything else. It's not we have to do this or else. It's more of thinking about the future and preparing the right company for the next phase of growth. It's much easier to do it now and focus on, okay, what do we need to do to prepare now so that we can go way beyond that kind of growth and scale. And it's normal for companies to sort of grow and expand and then say, wait a second, we need to change direction a little bit or we need to refocus. And I think some companies put that off too long, and we're trying to do it ahead of what needs to happen.
Yeah, of course. So you have a
other companies that do bits and pieces or parts of what we do. But what we try to focus on is the best user experience possible, the best cross-platform experience possible, and the best technology that's applied to make you more productive. So that's a very sort of clear area where we can differentiate ourselves from our competitors, and that necessitates us creating a premium experience. Once you create a premium experience, it also makes it much easier for global expansion, because you can look at the iPhone, you can look at any other premium product example. They don't change the product based on country, because if it's good enough, it's good enough for what people want to use around the world. And we try to aspire for that same thing, because we believe that when you're super productive, that gives you competitive advantage, and people all want that same type of experience regardless of where they are.
Yeah, and just backstage we were talking about how companies in China can often do this thing where they're trying to compete with each other in price, going down and down and down, and you feel that's not the model.
Not at all. I mean, it's a race to the bottom, and it really doesn't matter what your price is. If you don't have a great experience that brings some magic to people's everyday life, then you can charge nothing for it, and it won't really matter. So what we care about more is what is the right value for the customer, and what is that worth to them in each country. So that's how we set our pricing. That's how we think about our product experience, and as we refocus back on Evernote, sort of the core application, that's really how we drive our decision making, is what is going to create value for all of our users.
Yeah, so this new model in China, I think it's at a 40% discount in the mid-range.
Correct.
I mean, how did you settle on that for the Chinese market?
We did a ton of research. So we did this actually around the world. We did everything from user research to focus groups to surveys to actual conjoint studies and price laddering and all these different very theoretical things to understand what was the price point that conveyed the right feeling of I'm getting value of this product, but it's also still a premium product that's something that I receive a strong amount of value to. So there's that balance between making sure that it's the right price for you as a user, but that you're not eroding for it. And so it was all of that research, particularly around the user groups and the focus groups, that really drove us to the right price point.
Yeah, for sure. And the new CEO isn't the only big management change you guys have got this year?
Yeah, we've introduced, we also brought on a CFO in the US as well, who's been doing extremely well and helping sort of plan for the future. And we're really, really excited that we've now found the general manager for our China operations, who'll be starting very soon.
Great, yeah. So, I mean, what will be that person's role if we're looking at China?
Well, China is such a unique sort of market for us in general. It's a fully operational office, so they have everything from the technical side to customer support to marketing, and so that person's really in many ways running their own business. We look for someone who's very entrepreneurial, who can take ownership of Beijing and really grow it to the next level. So it's everything from product all the way to marketing, all the way to customer support.
Yeah, and I know you're not ready to mention who the new manager is, but can you tell us how you found the new general manager?
So we spoke to more than 50 people in looking for the right person, the right fit, that both can lead a strong team and inspire a team, and also have the right technical and business sort of sense and balance. So we did a lot of proactive research based on what we think is the right personality and culture fit, but also the right experience level.
Yeah, okay. And finally, China. I mean, it's your fastest growing market. What do you see Evernote look like in China in the next 10 years or so?
Yeah, so we're at 15 million users in China, which is our second largest market outside of the US currently. And again, as I said, we quadrupled the number of paying users in China this year. So really, for the next 10 years, it's all about how can we rapidly expand our user growth through partnerships. So we're actively seeking strong partners in the China market. And then also, how can we grow the business offering and help to continue to add value to companies.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.